Well, the rise in the number of buildings that have collapsed in Kenya in the last few weeks shows the gaps in the country's construction sector. What was once a vibrant construction industry that has become a huge boost to the East African nation's real estate sector, with hundreds of houses being put up across the country on a daily, has, however, registered increased collapse of houses, pointing to the weakness in the industry. This is according to experts. And so today we want to ponder more on getting to understand the gaps within the construction standards in the country, that is Kenya. And so joining us for this crucial conversation, of course triggered by the events that have played out in the past 3 weeks or thereabout, as having to see these buildings going down without proper explanation as what could have triggered that. We've lost lives in such occurrences. We've lost so much property and so much money, and therefore it is incumbent upon us to have this conversation. Even worse is that it's not the first time that is happening. We have had that trend. In 2018 it was extremely outrageous, and we ask ourselves, don't we have proper policies to make sure that such is tamed? Florence Nyole, the Vice President of the Architectural Association of Kenya, joins us this morning for that particular conversation, and CEO Mizizi Africa Homes Limited, who's equally in the construction company or entity or sector, joins us for that conversation. That is George Mburu. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for creating time. And I guess the question goes straight to you first. Having been in this particular entity that is quite huge towards making sure that there are proper standards and sanity in the world of construction, why do we still have this conversation of buildings getting to the seventh level and then they crumble down just like that?
Thank you very much, Linda, for having us here in studio. The standards are there, and to say the truth, they are there. As we all know, we have a building code, we have a law in place, but people do not follow that simply. The first and foremost is that people do not actually use professionals to put up their buildings. We have a big issue when it comes to even approval of construction. People are building without approval, so there's nobody who will check the type of architectural drawings that are there, structural drawings, and people just go ahead and commence construction without necessarily using the services of a professional, in this case a structural engineer, and that of an architect.
To what extent do these laws go? Do we not have, again, laws that have been put up to make sure that we deal with the flouters of the laws that are in existence and the policies in terms of the standards of construction?
We do have a law. We have the National Construction Authority, as we all know, who are in charge of contractors in Kenya, and they have what you call prosecutorial powers. They can actually come to site, and if you're flouting the laws, they should be able to arrest you and take you to court, and you'll be charged.
Then what? The gentleman I had,
yes.
I was trying to introduce this segment,
yes,
and I was done with them, but they had to shout and say, what? No, it's corruption. Some of them will get money here and there, and before you know it, well, their structures are set up in the wrong places. Years down the line, it's a whole different story.
Yes, it's unfortunate that corruption is here with us. So people, maybe even when they get that particular construction permit, they do take shortcuts and get the permits without necessarily even having professionals on board. But we do know that the standards are in place, the laws are in place, but people basically do not follow them, and that's where we start. We have an issue also of impunity. Perhaps they do have professionals on board, but they do not go ahead to use them, especially when they start off on site. So there's a gap in the part of enforcement of the laws that exist, and that is something that we really need to address, because we could follow everything, we have everything on pen and paper, but if on site somebody is using a different type of material or a different reinforcement, then the structure will definitely crumble.
It's a big deal to be in the construction world, and to set up a structure of this nature. Sure. As little as it may appear, I can imagine the energy, the resources that have been put towards making sure that we have such structures. Is it that easy to flout the rules in the country?
Yeah, thank you very much, Linda, for having us. And yes, I would say, like my sister has said, there's that issue of not using professionals, and which is something that is very wrong. And because the rules are there, and at times also because there is that desire. Everybody desires to have a home, everybody desires to do construction, because as you have said, your guests, they were jumping, because whenever construction is mentioned, even if it is coming up with a small cubicle, it is something that is in people's heart. Everybody wants to own a house or something. Yeah, so this is something that has so much interest, and you also find that getting the professionals also at times is not that easy.
Okay.
Because you do not know if you need a qualified architect, where do you get them? If you need a qualified engineer, where do you get them? Because I think those services are not advertised, so you find that it is also difficult. Yes, the desire is there to maybe come up with a construction, but you wonder, where do I start to get these professionals? Yeah.
Right. I'd love for you to probably paint a picture of what plays out in other countries. I don't know whether you've tried to extend Mizizi Africa Homes to other different parts of the world, say other different parts of the continent, that is, say, the neighboring Tanzania and many others, or if not necessarily expound it further, just trying to equate the scenario there and here. How different could it be?
Yeah, thank you very much. For us, Mizizi Africa Homes Limited, we have started here in our country, Kenya, because it's normally said charity begins at home. Yeah. And so we are still here in Kenya, and we are happy so far so good because of the experiences that we have experienced. We have continued to get and also to continue to interact with these professionals, and I believe by the time now we are very conversant with the construction here, because every day is a learning experience, and as we are growing we are also getting experience. So we believe by the time we are going to other regions, maybe other parts of East Africa, other parts of Africa, we shall have actually consolidated our base here and have professionals here, because actually professionals, you are encouraged even to go with professionals anywhere. Like you see, we have Chinese. The Chinese, it's only that they're encouraged for the casual laborers or the work that does not require skills. They can utilize our local people. But for professionals, they are encouraged to come up with their engineers and such. So even as Mizizi, when we have that very big capacity of professionals here, we are going also to utilize them as we go to other parts of Africa, and we expand to other areas.
All right. Yeah. Now, Florence, let's speak to this one person who has been lucky enough now. They have some few resources here and there, would want to channel that to real estate, would want to channel that to set up, a commercial building or a building of their own. What are these bodies and entities that are certified, to be there to guide them through? For instance, the Association of Kenya, that is the Architectural Association of Kenya, and then other bodies that are in existence that, this person has to go through before they set up and they come up with a building that is of expected standards.
All right. The process is quite, it's technical, I should say, but it's really not difficult. Architects are there, engineers are there, and I think over the years we have tried to expose to the public. We have a program called the Jeuna Mjengo program, where we actually go out and say what architects do, what engineers. We were trying to demystify these very big words that people would say are too complicated for them to come on board. But ideally, when you have a construction project in mind, the first and foremost person is that you need to find a suitable architect who understands your brief and understands your concept. And most of the time we encourage people to also do what you call due diligence on your professionals. So what will happen is that the architect is usually most likely the first person you'll go to, because they'll carry sort of the vision that you have, and then they'll bring on board an engineer and a quantity surveyor and perhaps a planner, depending on the type of project that you have. So at a minimum, those four, and many others depending on the type of project that you have. And now this professional team will help you to produce your concept first and foremost, and then they'll enable you, if you're within a jurisdiction that requires approval drawings, then they produce those and take them through the county governments as is required. Let's say, for instance, if you're doing it in Nairobi, and then thereafter those projects should be registered by the National Construction Authority, and then you can go ahead and commence your work on site. So we find gaps where people do not even start off with professionals. They just go to site and they get a fundi or any person who calls themselves a contractor, and they commence construction. So if they do not follow that due process, which is technical, then the gap, we start to see a gap in that place. The other thing also is that professionals are also able to even before you start off and you're looking to go into a venture that will bring back, an investment, a good return on your investment, is that they're able to also help you to project. You can even carry out a feasibility study before you even commence construction. They tell you, if you're doing a commercial project in this area, these are the type of returns that you require. So they'll probably bring on board a real estate expert or a real estate financier. And we also help clients to actually get finance from even banks, like for instance, the documents that you require to take to a bank or to a financier to do that. So professionals come on board, and they're really the key to helping you drive a project from inception to the very end successfully. And maybe we also need to demystify that we are not expensive. All we do is just to help guide you through the process of construction. And most of the time you'll find that you'll save money. Look at a situation where a building has collapsed, you've lost millions of shillings. Whereas if you had professionals on board, they would guide you and help you to protect that investment, because at the end of the day, it is your money, it's your hard work, you need to protect it, and therefore you need professionals on board to help guide you from the beginning to the end. Yeah.
All right, and we come to you, George, and you probably have done this for the longest of time, and with proper knowledge of the guidelines that are set for the same. How different is it for a person who's venturing into the construction world for the first time, or setting up a building for the first time, in comparison to one that has been in existence? Do we have some ease in terms of how you handle things, in terms of the offices that you have to knock to for you to set up a project?
Yeah, thank you very much. When somebody is a startup, the first step is always the most difficult. So if you are starting and maybe you are not aware of where maybe to get the professionals, because for sure the professionals are important. Because for example, you are starting, let's say, a company, and you have identified a parcel of land, it is very important to do your due diligence. You do the search, and you understand the history of the land. And if you take it upon yourself to do it yourself, you may find that it may be hectic for you because you are not conversant with the processes. But if you make use of these professionals, you will find that your work will be easy. So what I would encourage somebody, as my sister has said, do not be afraid of engaging the professionals, the surveyors, the architects, the engineers, because at the end of the day, that small fee that you are going to pay to them, it is going to save you much, much more. I remember, like we Mizizi Africa Homes Limited, when we were starting, we had identified a parcel of land, and we actually really loved it because it was in a very nice place, and it was being sold at a very nice price. And had we gone ahead and paid without having done a proper due diligence, we came to learn that later we could have been swindled. And you imagine that, like for us, Mizizi Africa Homes Limited, we make utilization of people's resources. And these people have gone to the banks, they have taken loans. So you can imagine, in case of such a thing, the loss that you would be there. You are utilizing people's money, the money has gone, you have to start all over again, you have to pay them, they are paying the bank, you can imagine. So the fact that we had a very competent surveyor as well as a lawyer, made us to notice the red flags, and we were able to get away from that project, because at the end of the day, a construction or an investment in a house is something that is long term. So this is something that you need to work carefully. You do not need to rush. Yes, the desire is there, the need is there, but it is good and it's advisable to go slowly. Just go slowly. If you do not have the fee for the professionals, just take it easy. At the end of the day, this is a long-term investment. You do not have to rush, and this is money you have earned over time with so much hard work. Yeah, so do not take your time. Do not rush, and make use of the professionals. Yeah.
One thing to take your time, and one thing to be successful in that bid. And this is so common. I don't know how, as entities, then you come to work together to make sure that, these loopholes that are there are sealed. Forget about that aspect of people flouting the rules, or maybe the construction company or the surveyor. Or the architecture, or architect, coming in to flout the rules. This aspect of the existence of, substandard materials for construction, the existence of, that aspect where there are people who sell land that is not theirs, the small loopholes. How do you come in as associations, as sector, as sector players, to make sure that this then becomes a game of the past, so that moving forward, one would get the confidence to venture into this, and knowing very well then the right procedures to use should be followed to the utmost?
All right. I think just like any other profession, okay, let's call the building industry. It has actually its laws. We have quite a few laws that actually govern architects, quantity surveyors, engineers, right now even real estate agents, surveyors, and so on and so forth. So the first and foremost is that anybody who's venturing into the business of real estate should actually check in our registers whether an architect is registered, and even if they have a practicing license. Like for instance, if you went to our board, the website for our board, the Board of Registration of Architects and Quantity Surveyors, and you search my name or the name of the architect you want to engage, you will see their name there. And if you do not see their name, then that should be a red flag. So of course there's need also for a bit of stakeholder engagement, or at least the public awareness campaigns that need to be done. So the first and foremost thing is that we are duly registered. Honestly, professionals who are allowed to practice are registered duly by their respective laws and respective boards that are governed by the country. Mm-hmm. I think the other thing is, as you're saying very, very clearly, and we've noticed, that there's a gap in information sharing. There's importance in sharing information to the public. And we've done this twofold. I've already talked about the Jeuna Mjengo campaign, but also even on our website, on AAK website, we actually have a section of our website called the Build Hub, where we're saying for you to construct in these areas, this is what you need in terms of the kind of information that you need to have, even when you're going for approvals, even when you're approaching the county governments to get approvals, and so on and so forth. So we do have an information hub that we're trying to say, if people are able to understand this information that is available out there, then there's need for them to engage professionalism and professionals in their in their businesses. But I think also the other thing is substandard materials, as you're saying. We do have a code. We have KEBs that are here who actually monitor the kind of materials that we have in Kenya, materials that are even coming from outside and being put being put out for sale and being supplied to professionals, or even being supplied to sites within Kenya. But the other thing is that even when you're doing construction, there are codes. And here in Kenya, we follow what you call the British standards. We have the Euro codes that are there. We have even approved documents that show you how you should construct something. Mm-hmm. There is technology out there that is available. Sometimes new technology may take time before it's documented and proved to be of a certain standard, of a quality. Mm-hmm. But with time and with experience, we're able to develop those standards going forward. So the standards are available, but then what happens is that because maybe people are not aware of what happens on site, or what happens within a construction site, and what needs to be done, is that they end up flouting the rules out of let me use the word ignorance, and that is something that is unfortunate going forward. So when it comes to also the issue of real estate, and gentleman here has spoken quite well regarding that, is that you also need to see who is this real estate person that you're engaging with, what kind of work have they done, what kind of projects have they done, because you'll find a lot of people are crying because they've been swindled out of their property, they've been swindled out of their hard-earned sweat and investment, and unfortunately then that becomes a case of even now people even going to court and so on and so forth. So we do have, I understand, we do have even a real estate regulatory board that is going to be registering real estate agents, so that if you're not also registered by that board, then you should not actually be engaging in the real estate market. And I think it's just a step towards curbing what you call briefcase companies from swindling people out of their hard-earned company. So we encourage the public to do their due diligence. This information is available, and we will continue even at AAK. We work together with our boards, we work together with the National Construction Authority, we work together with county governments and all these bodies that are involved to put information out there through the information campaigns that I've mentioned earlier on, so that the public is aware. And I know maybe we've been doing it only in Nairobi, and we hope in future we'll be able to push the same to other counties. Right. And this information, we're not just talking, within Nairobi. We also even go all the way to the level of vernacular stations where we talk about construction in the language that even the layman is able to understand.
Well,
Yeah.
George, you are a game player by now, so there is not much of trouble. But I would want to believe that you've had your fair share of troubles, in trying to just get the stamina to, deeply be rooted in this particular industry and the building sector at large. Do you suppose the laws that are there, I don't know, maybe out of experience or out of what it is that you've shared with friends, are good enough to guarantee one, justice in the event that they have to probably have claims, they have to have issues with construction companies or, anybody in this particular sector? Because if they were as strong, then I would not want to believe that we can confidently have, stakeholders and experts arguing that people just choose to flout the rules. They choose not to adhere to the rules. Is it because they know that, well, after all, there's not much that can be done to them?
Yeah, thank you very much. You will notice that especially before the Constitution, somewhere like the county government or the counties were really feared because, it was known that when you interact with a county person, either you are beaten up, you are really harassed. But now I'm happy because things now are starting to slowly take a change, and some of the professionals that were really actually feared, like previously you used to mention of an architect, an engineer, and what comes to mind is somebody that is so big that you're actually afraid of. But nowadays I'm happy because with the opening up of information, with the new constitution, people now are starting to become more humane, for lack of a better word, and now people are starting to interact with people like the way they should, and now there's that relationship, the conducive, that relationship, good working relationship between the counties, between the engineers, between these professionals, and also between the developers. And now what is required is now it should be done more in the open, and more information. Information is power, and as my sister has said, that information now is being brought out now to the public, so that that fear can be demystified, and it can be shown that, like for example, if it's a developer and they are dealing with the county, this is a relationship that should be a buyer-seller relationship. The relationship should not be a master-servant. It should be a relationship that is working between like a customer and a buyer. Because at the end of the day, if it's a developer, at the end of the day, if you get those approvals and you make use of these professionals, there's a fee that you are paying to the professionals, and there's also the money that you are there's a revenue that you are paying to the county. So the relationship should be very cordial. That cordial relationship is what has been missing, and I think it is what has led now to what we are seeing, like people constructing without permits, because you find that somebody is constructing illegally, and they put the fundis there, and they put somebody to watch in case they see maybe somebody from the county or the people who normally oversees, they disappear. Then after some time, once they are gone, whether they put the eggs, they come back and they continue. So those flouting of the laws. But now, if people can work in that cordial relationship that we are talking about, you are doing something that is commendable. This is not a crime. Constructing is not a crime. You are actually creating employment for professionals. You are actually bringing revenue to the county. So for one, you are a friend, and you are an investor, and you are somebody who should be appreciated. So now then people sit down. These are the requirements. In case you need to construct, you need first of all to do the survey for that soil. You need to understand, can this soil hold this kind of a building that you want to do? And you pay something small, and the process becomes very easy. And when that happens, within our time, you find our country actually will be very conducive even for business, and even more investors will want to come and actually come up with houses and actually invest here in our country. Yeah.
You pay something small does not mean you pay something small.
I mean,
the legal fee. I know. I'm just telling them so they don't feel like, that is what we're trying to indicate here. So this cat and mouse game that has been there, like people are in a construction site. I don't know who is coming. They disappear until they're told, the coast is clear. Then they're back. Just what will it take to achieve this smooth, way of operation between the government agencies, the agencies that are there in the building sector and so much more? Because according to him, who's actively on the ground, then this would be the ultimate game changer. Forget about the exchange of kickbacks. Forget about the corrupt activities and all that. What will it take to achieve that seamless, operation?
Linda, to tell you the truth, there's really no straight answer. We just wish people would do the right thing as it should. We should, be people of integrity. We just wish that could happen. But unfortunately, we're in a society, and as you said, your previous speaker was talking about corruption, is that is what apparently is happening across the board. And you see, because construction industry is a very lucrative industry, people want to, have a foot in it and make money out of it. Interestingly, we've had conversations even with the Nairobi Metropolitan Service, who are currently the ones who are in charge of construction in Nairobi, or the planning development control in Nairobi. And they're telling us that they actually do not even have the capacity. Let's start from there. Counties do not have the capacity. They don't have enough enforcement officers to do that which we are seeing is enforcement, to go to sites, to check if sites are following the approved drawings, if things are being done to standard, which is unfortunate. So there's need also for the side of government to actually put more people, put more foot soldiers to be able to do this at the same time. Again, we also have currently, as we see it, even the NCA, they have prosecutorial powers, and we're really happy that was gazetted and is now in place, because they would just go to a site, put an X, and there's nothing they can do. But you see, with the prosecutorial powers, they're actually able to prosecute those who are flaunting the laws, which is a very important thing. So why can't the same thing also be given to county government, so that in areas where the county governments also has jurisdiction, they're able to prosecute those who are there. But I think also, and to a large extent, I think it's also the moral fiber of our nation. Really, why do you want to do something wrong? I think we need to be clear about what construction is. Construction is a very noble industry. It creates jobs, as George has said. It creates opportunities. It leads towards the beauty of our city and the beauty of our counties, and so on and so forth. So why we should also take it upon ourselves is to look at a situation where a fundi or just a road contractor comes and tells the client, I can build this for you. After all, we've already done this for the other person. But the conditions of site are different in every site. You cannot build what you build, say, in site A, similar to what you build on site B, because the soil conditions are different. The site size is different. You might be needing a little more reinforcement or different reinforcement from the same. So there's need for us to also weed out masqueraders. Today, if you go to Facebook and social media, you'll find people who are calling themselves, an all-in-one type of company. They say, construction, XYZ construction company, I'll give you design, I'll give you bills of quantities, I'll give you approvals, I'll also build for you, and I'll give you everything. That's not possible. There are different players in all these places that this person is telling you they'll give you one. And what happens is that they charge a very small fee, but they'll never actually be diligent enough because they don't have that capacity. So I think bottom line is, as the public and as responsible citizens, let us just to do the right thing. The industry is here to help us grow and to build our nation and to improve the economy. So let's just do that which is right. And trust you me, Kenyans are very well educated. They understand these things. They are well versed with the situation. So they just want to flaunt a rule here. But unfortunately, it's going to cost them billions. So for me, I think what I could say is that let's just do the right thing. Thanks.
All right, well, quite a tough terrain, and I'd want to assume that, well, a majority of people getting to this hoping that they're going to use the right direction, but, the difficulties that are mated on you or upon you once you hit the ground running would probably get you to levels where you think, how about a shortcut? So we take a short break and we just come and address the aspect of what is done, as a nation, as a state, in terms of leadership, in terms of the involvement of government, so that at least we make the environment well conducive for anyone who would want to get into the building sector after this break.
Ability is common in everyone. Those abled differently also have immense ability.
Maybe we are not good in both, but we can be good in life.
Standards, and we have seen buildings going down carelessly, and then we ask ourselves, just what plays out here? I mean, to look at such a huge investment crumbling down, it breaks one's heart. Probably because, as we have been told by the specialists here, is because sometimes there are people who just choose to flout the rules, to go against the rules. They set up buildings in places they're not supposed to, swampy areas. Speaking of areas where you've seen an X and the government says that, at this particular point we should not have buildings being set up. Someone saying, let me just put, you call them semi-permanent or semi-permanent structures, do business haraka before they come for me. Why do you have to go to such levels? And I mean, do we lack laws? Do we fall short of laws that would guide us in terms of policies of setting up good structures, and above everything, laws that are good enough to make sure that the people who flout the rules then are brought to book or put to book? It's really important to note that, the specialist on board says that we have all this. But the biggest question then is, where are our morals? Why do we go to levels that we still are not having standards in terms of how we are setting up our structures? Florence Nyole is the vice president of AAK. She's the one who confidently says that we have the rules and orders on board. It's just that we choose to go against the same. And we also have George Mburu, who's the CEO of Mizizi Africa Homes Limited, quite at the heart of the building sector or the construction industry. But then again, we still acknowledge that there are lots and lots of gaps. We would want to know the role that the government plays hugely in terms of making sure that this sector is well catered for. And I'll come to you, George. By and large, in as much as you are a private entity, at one point in time, you have to rub shoulders, you have to have a conversation with the government, you have to have a conversation with the government agencies. Do you suppose there's much, support and ease of a business that has been set by the government to make sure that the construction, industry becomes a boom, as of course is expected? We remember the other time we received the budget, it wasn't so friendly, for the construction company, and we had complaints here, left, right, and center. But it still appears like it's still moving on well.
Yeah, thank you very much. You will appreciate that when somebody is starting, especially venturing into construction or being a developer, most of the time people have to learn the hard way.
Okay.
Which is something that should not be there, because this information, some of these things should be very seamless, because I've actually not seen a school whereby people are taught about being a developer or how actually to come up with the construction. Yes, we have the professionals, but you find that at times when you are starting a business, let's say being a developer like Mizizi Africa Homes Limited, you find that sometimes you have to learn it as you do your thing. Yeah. And this is something I think that should not be there, because there should be a very clear, maybe somewhere, let's say a ministry or something, somewhere whereby you can be told in case you need to start maybe, let's say, construction or being a developer. These are where you can get the architects, these are the rules, these are the regulations, this is what you need to do. So you find that maybe somebody is purely driven by passion and the desire to maybe house people, because you find that the need for housing is very high, and you find that sometimes there's no that time yes, you have the desire to own your own house, but because you have so many other engagements, it's not easy. And you find that also the issue of corruption is all over, or the issue of taking shortcuts. So for example, you are employed somewhere, you want to do your construction, let's say you go to maybe the architect you think is a qualified one. Before you realize that that is a quack, already you have lost money. You think this is the engineer because maybe they are speaking, or you have seen them do something. Before you learn they are not the right people, you have also lost money. Before you realize maybe the fundi is also maybe not qualified, you have lost money. And that is why the desire is there, but you find that very few people are willing or ready to get into the sector, especially the construction. Yes, we have seen the issue of people buying land, subdividing it. Is all over because it's very easy, because you just need to do the search, to subdivide the land, and that's it, you sell. But when now it comes to the construction, because there are so many risks there are so many people you need to know, you find not so many people are willing to venture into it. And the ones who have ventured, maybe before they realize that they have taken the wrong turn, they have maybe been taken advantage of by the rogue people. Yeah. And you find at the end of the day, they are the ones who are going to bear the consequences. Yes, they maybe had that desire to house people, they had that passion of constructing, but they got it wrong, maybe from the word go, because maybe the people they were using are not the right people. Yeah, so you find they have to bear the consequences. And so what I can encourage is that we continue empowering this sector, because it's a very lucrative one, and there's that desire. And one of the big four agendas is housing by the government. Let there be a way that is very clear. Let us demystify these myths, that for you to get the services of a profession, of a qualified architect, there's that it's not clear. Then again, the professionals also need to be very professional. People should avoid taking shortcuts, because you find that for example, you are a professional and you are being entrusted in something that not so many people have the skills. So you find that you want also to get rich quick, because you know the skills that you have, or that position you have been given does not have many people, so you want to take advantage. So for example, you see a developer and is very desperate, they want to venture into the business. You also want to also make sure before you are done, you have also become rich. That issue of becoming rich quick, whether it is a profession or what, you want to take advantage. You have seen somebody, as opposed to you doing the business over and over so that you create your wealth slowly, you want to hit your jackpot all at once from this one person, and maybe you start your own business. That's a problem.
That's well, and I agree. Such people will then invest much on poor workmanship, and this is very common. I have seen wale walikuwa watu wa mkono wamepanda mpaka kuwa fundi kamili, and I know 2-3 of them that are very proud of that. Well, they can set up buildings interestingly, but I don't know whether they are certified, whether there's paperwork that needs to be done. But they take up a building and up it goes. What do they need to know, such people? Because you see, it could be exciting that you're making an extra coin, that you are moved from being to mkono to what one would term as a fundi. But you know what? When the officials come for you, or they come into this place where they feel like there's a construction that is going on that is not well certified, then they will go with you. I mean, what is this one thing that these people get excited just because they're in search of job? They need to know.
All right, so the that level of let's call it that level of or the cadre of people who are working as we call them the fundis, and also the unskilled workers. Actually, the National Construction Authority does register them, and then usually what they do, if you want to know, they actually carry a badge with them, and I've seen sometimes even on sites we actually request the contractor to give us a list of these people who are actually skilled or unskilled workers on site, because then what happens is that they get trained by the National Construction Authority. They do carry out actually serious workshops on some on plumbing, some on masonry, some on electrical works, and so on and so forth. So then they improve their skills, so that with time they do actually have some form of certification through the National Construction Authority going on. What we've also seen is that and I think it's very interesting that this morning you're talking about CBC, and there's a gap in terms of training where most people jump from high school all the way to university, and the level of tertiary education has been sort of ignored, or people are not finding it to be lucrative. Yet that is where people get these skills, where people go to polytechnics or technical institutes and they gain the skills and knowledge in terms of the actual, brick and mortar work, masonry, plumbing, electrical works, painting, and so on and so forth. So there's also need to encourage people to move in that direction, because there is need, especially people who leave school and they're probably even just waiting to join university. There's no harm in them gaining skills in that particular area.
Okay.
Or even those who are already in the construction industry going back to train themselves. So there's need to also gauge how people are training and how people are being certified for this particular training, so that even when you're on site, there'll always be need for somebody to do the kazi ya mkono, and there's need for now the fundi to oversee the work, and then there's the contractor who now handles the procurement and the program of that particular project. So all those people are important, and they're all necessary. So it's important that at each level we are actually either increasing their knowledge in those skills. There's no harm in somebody who has been doing masonry for 5 years being trained just for a few months and being shown exactly how it should be, and so that they're able to even grow and now become a fundi and wasimamia watu wengine, so that there's also growth in terms of skills, and then we are now being able to also employ more people in the construction sector, because it's huge and there's so much money and it's very lucrative. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Before you expound on that further, George, and I'll treat this as claims, in as much as probably I have seen, someone who's pretty close crying foul on this. The claims are that the people in the real estate sector, will always out there go to in rush, set up substandard buildings, so that they can sell them to people. Now they get it cheap, or they put substandard, and they also sell it cheap, because after all, people in the urban centers are in dire need of homes, and therefore they're buying like left, right, and center. What is being done to minimize this, and how then, as the players in this sector, you're working towards making sure that you root out these rogue developers?
Sure. Yeah, thank you very much. And you learn that, as I had said, sometimes there is no other school of developers. So you find that also customers, they are trusting people, and maybe some of them, they have even not seen the work, and it is because you have that need. And especially for affordable housing is a very crucial thing, and that is why it is there in the big four agendas. There's that need for affordable housing. So you find that because the need is there, and also there's that need, and a solution has to be there. You find that sometimes people, they like some people, they want to take the shortcut. They want, yes, there's that need. They want to offer the solution, but they do not want to do a proper quality house. They want to take a shortcut, because sometimes you find even the buyer, when you tell them maybe a certain amount, they are not willing to pay, maybe because they do not have that money. If I tell you a very quality house, you will have to pay, let's say, 6 million. And this one now, I will involve everybody. You will follow all the due process and everything. Then I'll give you at 6 million. You will find that you may stay with your house like forever. Yeah. So you find, yes, there's a way you can minimize the cost. Yeah. But also there are some people who take shortcuts. They use substandard materials, so that at the end of the day you arrive at the required the cost, or the price at which the customer is willing to buy. And since this is also a business, and it's also like a private development, you find there are all those shortfalls. But what I can encourage even other developers, and it is very bad because cheap is expensive. It is bad to use substandard materials so that you can get to a low price. What I can encourage is come up with innovative ways of how to reduce the price, and at the same time you have quality. Like for us, Mizizi Africa Homes Limited, once we noted that the price of iron sheet, the price of timber, the price of gypsum ceiling has gone very high, we opted to start doing something we call flat roof. And flat roof, the only thing that is expensive with a flat roof, because our flat roof we make use of, we put a slab, a concrete slab, is maybe the steel bars, of which we would also encourage the government to check and actually come up with incentives for such materials. The steel bars are the only thing that is expensive, so we are able to cut on cost on a quality house, but at the same time, so that at the same time we are able to give at a very affordable price.
All right. Owners, how important is it for them to have at least basic or general knowledge on the aspect of construction, because we are getting into a space where you entrust your project to your engineer, in totality, and everything, including the aspect of going out there to buy materials. Well, for instance, you're told go get this material Y16, instead you get Y32, and the confusion in between there is pretty much real. So as you entrust this to a developer, as you entrust this to your engineer, is it important that you have the basic of knowledge as an owner, so at least you also don't get to levels where you're told this is the price of this material, but because you feel like we're an Anigonga too, then you don't want to dish out the money for you to get quality at the end of the day?
Yes, I think it's important that anyone who's venturing into real estate or even construction, even if it's your own house, let's say even mashambani, should have some little knowledge about construction. There is no harm in going to even a hardware store, figuring out what those prices are, and even putting them on a list. Sometimes back, the AK is part of an organization called the Joint Building and Construction Council. We usually do produce a price the price index showing the prices of materials and even the cost per square meter of construction, so that somebody has a general knowledge. If I'm building a 200 square meter house and in this particular area it costs 30,000 per square meter, I should be probably doing it at 6 million. So that even when your consultant is giving you a price, there's something you can compare with. So there's no harm in construction. And I keep telling even my own clients that construction is a dirty game. You must get your hands dirty. You cannot do it, at the comfort of your desk without even coming to check what it is we are doing and figuring out some of these things. But at the same time, also we do have people who are different. Clients are different. Some do not want to be involved, and they fully trust their consultants, which they should, because professionals should be professional in their work. But you also have consultants. Clients who are very much engaged in the project. They really want to know even exactly how you're going to put these particular steel members, how you're going to finish, the type of tile you're going to use. A lot of clients that we have, especially who are building their homes, they want to go with you to actually buy the tile. When you're buying the tile, they choose the tile for themselves, they pay for it there. So I think different clients call for different engagement, but we encourage that if somebody really just wants to be knowledgeable about it, they can just have a look at the price indices that are out there, the prices of steel. I believe many steel companies would actually release those prices. Cement companies release their prices. If you go to any paint depot, they have the prices there. So it's just gaining knowledge is important for anybody who's actually in it. After all, you're actually putting your hard-earned money into construction.
And so as we close, maybe in a minute, how does the need to plan our cities and our towns so that buildings are not built in unsafe grounds, such as swampy areas, such as near water banks, and now we see the green. I can't remember the name we used to call it.
Bulldozer.
The bulldozer man coming down and of course taking down these particular buildings. How much do we need to plan?
So it's interesting once again that the plans are there. There's actually what we call the Nairobi Integrated Urban Master Plan that is in place that indicates commercial zones, residential zones, green zones, waterways, and so on and so forth. It's there. It's just a matter of enforcement and us being proactive in where we construct. Right now, the Nairobi Metropolitan Service are going through a new development policy, and they are saying these areas should be more commercial, these areas should be residential. We are allowing this type of development here because as we are looking at maybe another 50 years, let's say, of Nairobi and how it will look. Because right now, as we sit, we actually do not have a policy to ground the type of construction that we're doing. So with that policy, hopefully it will come into place, then it will clearly demarcate which areas are to be constructed upon and so on and so forth. And there are bodies that protect these areas like riparians, waterways, the railways, the road reserves and so on and so forth. So it just goes back to saying, let's do what is right.
Patches of land, you're always extremely keen on such as we close?
Yeah, land is one of the biggest factors when it comes to construction. And it's very important, and I'm happy the way the Nairobi area has already been digitalized. And we want to encourage, let the issue of land be very clear, especially the searches, let it be very, very clear. And basically dissemination of information, whether it is about land. For one, land is very crucial because that is where you can first go wrong, especially in construction, and so that it can be very easy when you want to do the search, when you want to know the information of land. It is very important because land is the biggest, actually takes the biggest amount when you are doing a construction. Cost of land is what will determine what is the price of a certain house in a certain place. Cost of land, and we're also happy because some areas are being opened up. The roads are coming up, so this is very encouraging. Let's continue opening up our areas that were unreachable and disseminating the information. That's
true, and the information is out here. Please, before you embark, make sure that you do due diligence, make sure that you do your homework right. Last speaker, George Boro, the CEO of Mizizi Africa Homes, and Florence Nyole, who's the Deputy Architectural Association of Kenya. When I say deputy, I mean vice president, right? Thank you so much. We close it at that, but not in totality. Testy Wednesday is coming your way after this break.